Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to all my brethren in Islam and humanity. Once again, we are back again in our video sessions. This is part 3 of the topic Refutation of Atheism. In my previous videos, if you would have seen those videos clearly, you would have, pretty much have understood the core concept of atheism and how you can rationally and philosophically and of course Islamically refute those arguments with plain reasoning, with simple logic. I mean, it is to be more precise, it's an insult to the intellect of a person if he will come up with such a premise, which by very definition of logic and reason is totally against it. Okay, so I mean, premises such as every construction has a constructor, every creation has a creator, every effect has a cause. So because for the very reason why there are many people who come up from among the atheist groups, right? Many people who are atheists who come up to us and come up to the people who are believers of one God. They come up to us and tell us, look, you know what? Everything happened by chance, it was hit and try method. And or someone would come up from them, would try to give an explanation and sum it up and come up to this conclusion that universe had always existed. So there is, to be honest with you guys, there is complete disagreement within the atheists themselves, within the agnostic people themselves, within the people who I would precisely call people who don't believe in God. They have many differences within themselves, so it's quite difficult to reconcile their differences. Well, that's a problem. They need to solve it themselves, amongst themselves. To be more respectful in this topic, which is, I believe, whenever we're gonna discuss this topic or any topic, we should always be respectful to the addressees. Okay. Now, this discussion is by no means meant to insult someone. It's just academic discussion wherewith we're gonna expose your fallacies and errors, right? And we're gonna tell you what and how our foundations are quite strong. So, these atheists come up with such premises which kind of, negate their very own concepts to a large extent, because they base it on science, they base it on rationality. That's how they're gonna tell you, okay, you know what we believe is quite rational, but if you're gonna define rationality, if you're gonna define reason and logic, and then you come up to the conclusion, it's completely inverse to what they actually are calling you to. So I mean, but if you're gonna come up to a theist, not an atheist, a theist, a person who believes in God, and he gives you his conclusion, then you're gonna say, you know what, the logic and reason kind of supports what you are saying, right? So it's, to be more precise, it's marketing of limited knowledge of science to achieve or aim for something which is not right. So they market some knowledge of science and scientific facts and even the theories, and they come to a conclusion which in essence is quite unscientific in nature. So that was a small refurbishing, reminding us, everyone, other viewers, of what kind of mindset they have, because when you address them, you need to understand their mindset. Now, coming to this part 3 of the video. In my previous videos, I have summarized many points. Okay, among those points which are summarized are already clear with you, right? I did not go again to the details of those points, but I will elaborate on those points more for you guys, right? Let's go to the point which I discussed in my previous video, which was about the Big Bang. In one of my videos, I had quite clearly explained to you that the universe must have a causeless cause, a first cause before which there is no first, right? Now, the people who do not believe in this understanding, they come up to us and tell us that, look, you know what, universe has been eternal. So I'm going to tell these guys, like I told them before, that on one hand you believe in Big Bang, okay, and you present Big Bang to us to prove your fallacies. On the other hand, you say the universe is eternal. So complete clear contradictions. Okay, we move ahead. So they will come up to us and tell us that, okay, fine, you know what, there was Big Bang, okay, there was primary matter, okay, it was matter and energy, you know, it was a super condensed ball of matter and energy. That's how you're going to precisely call it. And obviously, by essence, that matter was in a state of tranquility, right? And so they're going to come up and tell you, okay, you know what, this matter has always been there. If I'm going to ask them what was there before that matter, what was there before that ball, super condensed ball of matter and energy, they will not be able to answer you because their knowledge is very, very limited on that. If they're gonna use the analogy of cause and effect, they ultimately go to the final point or the first point, which is the Big Bang. What was before Big Bang? That's something they cannot convincingly answer you. They will come up to you and tell you that Big Bang was always there. I mean, the primary matter was always there. Okay, matter was in the form of, was a matter in movement, was a matter static? By the very definition of what they believe as a matter, it was static. It was lifeless, okay? It was static, okay? So the primary matter was static and was in a state of tranquility. Fine. But to be honest with you guys, if there was no external force, external energy, to shake the very tranquil state of the primary matter, the Big Bang would have never taken place. For the Big Bang to take place, there was a need of explosion. Explosion cannot come from nothingness. Explosion cannot come from a state of tranquility unless there is a force which disturbs the tranquility. So my question to them, what was this external force? If you're going to say there was no external force, this defeats your understanding of matter being static and at the same time going to a different phase of movement. If the matter was static, which indeed it was, it needed an external force to disturb the state of tranquility, right? So there was an external force which disturbed it. If you're going to deny my argument, you have no answer to back your point, because it's going to remain a primary matter for billions and billions of years without any movement, because it is static, it is tranquil, right? There cannot be a forward moving because there's no movement, it's lifeless, without intelligence, without intellect, right? So what was the external cause? We state that external cause was Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That was God Almighty who caused it. You might come up and say, you know what, it was caused by matter, you know, there was a movement within the matter. But if you do a psychoanalysis of what these people really kind of believe in, they're going to say there was a first matter before whom there was no first matter, right? They're going to argue with you and they will come up with this analogy, which actually is against their arguments all along that they have been giving. So the understanding they have of the first matter, if we can argue with them, is the understanding we have what the first cause is. Now, question number 2, you're going to tell them, is was the first cause, okay, the first matter, does it have an intellect? Is it wise? Is it all wise? Is it having intellect? Is it having knowledge? Is it having a will? They will obviously say no. Okay, fine. Are you getting my point, guys, where I'm trying to go? Because nature, by definition, you know, is a compilation of laws which are which the whole matter are running through. Any matter in this universe, from stars to solar systems, run as per set laws, right? So that laws is a form of nature, law of governing the universe, the law which the matter follows, law which the heavenly bodies follow. Now, obviously, this nature of the laws is defined, is set. You're gonna go to the point where you're gonna come up who set those laws, You see, there are many questions which they can't answer, right? There are many questions they can't answer. If you're going to dig deep into it, right, if you're going to talk about red blood cells, okay, why is blood red? They're going to come up and tell you that, okay, you know what, it's because of the cells, because of the red blood cells. They're red, okay? Now you're going to tell them, why are they red? They're going to say, because of the substance called hemoglobin present in the blood. How is hemoglobin produced? Okay, they're going to give you the theory of it's produced with oxygen in the heart. So you're going to ask them why the red blood cells are red. They're going to come up and tell you it's because of the red blood cells, right? And then they're going to come up and tell you it's because of hemoglobin, which is a scientific fact, which we all believe in, right? It's based on research, like because of hemoglobin. So hemoglobin, how is hemoglobin created, right? And how does that happen? Then they're going to go to the point where blood is made. They're going to go to the point of what the functions of liver are. So they're going to connect liver with the heart, with the red blood cells. But guys, you have to come up to the conclusion that all of them run in conformity and coordination with each other. A slight difference in the time of their actions, a slight defect will make the whole system collapse. This amazing, coordination and collaboration between all these elements in our body, all these parts of our body, the liver, the heart, okay, and the blood, okay, and the veins, and how everything within our body is connected is marvelous, and it's going on non-stop. You talk about the heart, how much blood does a heart pump? Gallons and gallons of blood, right? It doesn't stop. The heartbeat doesn't stop. How many heartbeats have you had since morning? Think about it. Okay, so these are the questions. You can't just end up with saying, okay, this is nature. This is nature. You can't say that. You have to see this beautiful coordination going on and on. So there is something beyond that. You need to retrospect, right? Now, just noted some points which I don't want to forget those points, you guys, because the video probably is going to be 20-25 minutes long. So I'm sure the video should do justice to the topic. Okay. So we talked about the theory of nature. We gave a small example of why is blood red. We gave example of red blood cells and the hemoglobin and how it goes down to liver, so they're all connected to each other. Now the example number 2 that I'm going to give you is quite interesting actually. I had already discussed with you guys about how you cannot call the primary matter as a matter without intellect and without logic, without intellect and without knowledge, right? So I have some questions for people who are atheists, right? I'm going to ask them a simple question, right? And not only questions, just think about these points, right? You know that, the whole theory of human body. You've studied biology, anatomy, you know the science of physics, which everyone of us know. We know to a large extent. There are many of you who probably might be scientists. Many of you might have studied many things like many of us have, right? So I'm going to ask you a question, right? There are a couple of questions. The first question is, why is blood red? Your answer would be fine, right? The answer would be that because of red blood cells, right? And you know the size of those cells, right? You know how amazing nanotechnology God Almighty has created, the size of the cells and the whole process. Everything is connected from dot to dot. And then you're going to come up and say that, then I'm going to ask you, why are those cells red? You're going to answer me, it's red because of a substance present in the blood called hemoglobin, right? Now I'm going to say, how is hemoglobin created? Right? How did it come into being? You're going to say that when it's mixed with, oxygen in the heart, right? That's how, the blood becomes red because of the substance called hemoglobin. So where did it come from? So you're going to give me the functions of and the relation of heart and oxygen, right? Then I'm going to ask you, where did the cells carrying the hemoglobin come from, right? The cells were created in the liver. It was made in the liver, right? Now that you know, right? This is basic science. I mean, anyone who's familiar with science knows these points, right? But the point I'm trying to make is something very, very, very deep. My conclusion, which would make you think, is this, that, think about it. You know that the blood, the cells, and the liver, etc., they are connected to one another perfectly in a beautiful, architecturally made design, right? They are knit together perfectly. Each one of them plays their part with precision, without a single defect. And this precision is ongoing, guys. It's ongoing. Look at your lifespans. When I'm going to ask you that, how are these things, a real point, how are these things interconnected? How is it that they are precise? How is it that all these elements of our bodies or components of bodies are so minutely interconnected that any disconnection would break the whole system down? You're going to say or think and respond within yourself, law of nature. It's law of nature. Okay. And what is this law of nature? You're going to reply to me, it's operation of natural and chemical components in this universe, right? And then I'm going to really press you more hard and tell you, right? I'm going to press you more hard and tell you, how did it come to be like that? How did it come to be like that? This cannot work in a vacuum without intelligence or a by chance system. How can it work with a system called, inverted commas, by chance? Think about this point. This is such an intelligent system. You definitely had to scratch your head when you were small, when you're growing, when you understood your body parts, right? So you didn't know about this by chance. You had to make an effort to understand. And this theory, this fact, was known to people when they did a lot of research in the human body. They studied the human body. They use their reason, their knowledge to understand the human body. Okay, point number one. Point number two, look at your eyes. Look at the lens of your eyes. Like, ponder over the retina of your eyes. Ponder over the best camera in the world, and then ponder over the ability of your eyes, right? And compare them. Compare the best camera in the world and God-given camera, God-given lens to you. And ponder over the whole function of the eyes, from the minute points and intricacies to its structure, its inner structure. You'll be amazed. You'll be amazed just like Darwin was amazed. Darwin said that when I ponder over the structure of human eye, I start to lose my mind. You know why? Because it's so beautiful and so intelligent. For the person, the force which made our eyes must be well aware and having a lot of knowledge over optic engineering, right? He would be a mathematician, he would be an optic engineer. He would know every minute thing about your organs. Without that, this cannot come. You and the scientist, whatever the knowledge we have of this universe is just a very small fragment of the knowledge of the laws of the universe. You have to study so hard, dig so hard, and when you learn and gain perfection in the science, you are called scientists, right? Now, surely you have intellect, you have brain, you have intelligence, you have cognition of what you're studying. I am not calling you deaf and mute and dumb. I'm not calling you lifeless. I'm not calling you people without will and intellect. So if you and all of us are not devoid of intellect, how can the one who made this law and this nature and this universe be devoid of intellect, be devoid of knowledge, be devoid of intelligence? Think about it. You will be ashamed and perhaps angry to apply the same logic to human beings, but you have no qualms about applying this definition to that first cause and causeless cause, right? You call that first cause and causeless cause and the cause devoid of intellect and knowledge, whereas you, learning some fragment of the laws he created, become scientists. Think about this fallacy of your mindset. You're not doing justice to logic, are you, right? So, I mean, having said these points and this, intellectual gymnastics that we've been doing all this while, I'm going to go further, right? So the point that I'm trying to make, that if you ponder over every intricate function of your body organ, you know the one who gave you the function must be fully well versed with that knowledge, that field of knowledge. You cannot study science or biology unless and until you're not a biologist. So you are expert in that field. When you study the laws of gravity, when you study how the solar system works, the rotation of sun around its axis and the rotation of the earth and the moon on their own orbits, on the planet, heavenly bodies on their own orbits, you see the beautiful symmetry, beautiful architectural design, and amazing display of gravitational forces, amazing display of law of gravity in the cosmos around us. The being, the force which put this law into place must have complete hold over science of gravity. And if you're going to study the universe from a mathematical point of view, you will come to conclusion that the force must be, the intelligence must be an amazing mathematician. So the primary cause, the first cause, must have an intellect. And if you call it nature, if you call it matter, whatever you call it, any definition you call it, you can't have it devoid of intelligence, intellect, okay, and will and power. These attributes have to be with that first cause. I just logically showed you that how it is irrational to divide all these attributes to the first cause. Think about the points that I have stated to you. Now then, moving to more further discussions, which we have done. As I told you, this session probably might be more in depth. Right. Another point I would like to add to these laws of nature is that science does tell you what the laws are, but it's not going to give you a convincing answer as to how did this law come into place in first place. It misses the first part and gives you the last part. How did this law come into place in first place? Think about it. Just a little apart with my battery. My phone battery is going off, so I'm going to wind this session up as soon as I can. And inshallah, in next session, which is going to be uploaded tomorrow itself, I'm going to give a more in-depth analysis to these points to you. I have just listed down the points that I have discussed with you, so we shouldn't go haywire and go as per the topics. Today, my premise, which I wanted to state to you, is that the first cause and the primary cause, and try to strike a common chord with you. You might call it a primary matter. I'm calling it first cause, right? Even though I have given you refutation of how it cannot be just a matter and then the Big Bang, the static form of the matter, and it cannot be into movement without an explosion or without movement of the or disturbance of the conformity and tranquility of the state. I've discussed all these points. Tune into my video again, those who are watching it now, to understand it clearly. Having said that, I gave a conclusion that the first cause must have an intellect, must have knowledge. It cannot be devoid of these attributes, right? Now that we settle down to the notion of first cause, causeless cause, we have to settle down to the attributes of the first cause and causeless cause. So you might not come up and say it's just nature or it's just primary matter, right? Now, this is a point that I wanted to establish today. The points which we have already established, which is part of the whole discussion we are discussing, are following. We gave you a complete understanding of that this creation of this universe has a wonderful design, has intelligence. We gave you the fine-tuning argument, right? And we talked about the premise of the rational premise of nothingness coming from nothingness, and the universe must proceed from existence. It cannot come from nothingness. Okay, so there are only three possibilities of any event, this universe to come into being. We discussed that point also, that did the universe create itself? Was itself created? Did it come from nothing? Or we ourselves, our creators, or did we create it? So obviously the universe is not self-created, because there was a point the universe didn't exist. The very scientific fact corroborates this point as well. Whether you call it Big Bang or any point you want to discuss, there was a point that this cosmos didn't exist. It came from a primary matter, and we want to discuss that point. The universe didn't create itself, because to create itself is illogical, impossible. It's a logical, analogy, a illogical premise, because universe didn't exist. If the universe didn't exist, how can it create itself? How can the universe self-create itself? Because to create itself, it has to be present. So it cannot create itself, because there was a time it came into being. It had a start time. There was a time universe was created, right? So before that, it was non-existent. So it cannot create itself. To create itself, it has to be present before creating itself. So it's illogical, right? It's illogical, really. It cannot be present and not present at the same time. So universe didn't self-create, right? Because you cannot just think about this point again. You will come to a conclusion that universe didn't self-create, right? There was a point it did not exist. Simple as that. Universe didn't come from nothingness. Why? Because from nothing comes nothing. And we have discussed this point in detail. Need not go back into these points again. So the logical argument is that universe, there was a point of time universe didn't exist. It came into existence. It must have come into existence by an all-knowing, all-wise, causeless cause, who is the creator of the universe. The universe has a creator who created the universe when it was not existent. It was non-existent. This is the only logical premise and conclusion that you can come up to, which satisfies both intellect, mind and heart, and it's based on empirical science as well. Because when you look at the empirical science, you will come to the same conclusion, because in this discussion I've been using those very premises of empirical sciences to prove my points one by one. So having said that, this long discussion that I've had so far, I was also going to discuss some amazing Quranic miracles of information, miracles of knowledge, Quranic miracles of scientific facts with you. But perhaps today's session might become more lengthy, because to do justice to that topic, you really need to upload, series after series of videos. So inshallah, God willing, tomorrow I'm going to discuss in more detail the Quranic arguments of existence of creator, the Quranic proof of the existence of creator. And this is going to be pretty much based on the fact that Quran itself is a divine revelation from God Almighty. This knowledge is the knowledge which Quran presents in terms of the cosmological knowledge, scientific knowledge, is impossible to be man-made. It's impossible to be known by our Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, at that time 1400 years ago in Arabia. It's impossible for that knowledge to be driven, or knowledge to be induced or deducted from the times the time the Prophet was living. It's impossible, because these things were known to us only 100 years from now, 50 years from now. So this is a very strong argument from the scientific point of view, touching the scientific miracles of the Quran, that this book must be from the creator of the universe, from that creator who caused the Big Bang. This must be from that, because this knowledge is impossible to be known at that time. There is no other logical conclusion that you can come up to. And inshallah, I'll prove to you not just Big Bang, but various other scientific facts which are mentioned in the Holy Quran. And by God's help, inshallah, tomorrow I will discuss that point in depth and detail with you. So, and last point for today that I'm going to be discussing with you, in more clear methodology would be, okay, the last point I'm going to discuss with you would be about the beautiful response of the atheists when you tell them about and you give them these convincing arguments. You know, just this is to lighten up the atmosphere of the discussion. You know, there was one European scientist or someone who, obviously there have been many scientists of, there have been many physicists, there have been many cosmological scientists, there have been many astronomers, there have been many scientists of physical sciences who believe in the existence of creator. They might not be having the notion as per their religions of that time, but they definitely believed in a creator. You can take the names of Isaac Newton, you can take the names of Einstein. I mean, they were quite different from the people of their time. Their beliefs were quite, you know, rational and scientific in nature, in the fact that they definitely use science as a basis to conclude the existence of the creator. Now, it's inverse for some people over here, which I fail to understand how. You know, really, it's quite surprising, to be honest with you guys. So people like Isaac Newton, people like, you know, Einstein, and many other scientists, okay, they were believers in one God. Now, one of the scientists who also believes in the creator, he stated that the idea that this universe came by chance is as absurd as anyone coming up and telling you that the Oxford Dictionary or dictionary you have with you, okay, that it came as a result of an explosion in a printing press. Okay, there was some default, an explosion in the printing press, and the result, lo behold, is the Oxford Dictionary in front of you. Think about this, guys. Really think about this point and premise. And really, I mean, if you use your basic common sense and reasoning, you can never ever come to those conclusions which some atheists or many atheists or the atheists come to. I'll end my discussion. This video has been quite long as compared to previous videos by giving just one beautiful example, right? It's in continuation to the example I gave about the sand and the mobile phone found in a beach in the sand. You know, but this is a fact actually happened in somewhere in Middle East. There was a city, a very ancient city, which was discovered because of the dust storm and various natural calamities, events which took place. And by that event, a complete city was unearthed from that desert area. And it was a complete city. You know, there were ruins of the city present over there, which gave sparkling proof of what a beautiful city, what a civilization or city it was like. I'm talking about a city, so it's a huge city which was unearthed from that desert. Now, obviously, if someone will come up to these people and tell them, hey, you know what, these archaeologists and researchers, that, you know, I believe that this city that you see is not a city, okay, or this city, if it's a city, this was created, this came into existence from a natural phenomena of chance, of just mere hit and try methodology. You know, the wind blew, the rain fell, and it came into being. Obviously, you're gonna say this guy is insane. Now use this argument to understand this whole universe, how life has come into being. Look at the amazing proximity and the calculations of Earth and the distance of Earth with the sun, and how the whole heavens and earth, heavenly bodies come into play for life to be there in this earth and carry on in this earth. Think about this, guys, really. If that event is such an irrational analogy and understanding, then to ascribe that argument to the whole universe and the cosmos, and of course to human creation, is even more absurd. I would say, you know, it's absurdity upon absurdity, darkness of understanding. Allah is the one who guides whom He wills. I'm going to end the discussion. It's been a very long discussion with you, won't take more time. Now, inshallah, tomorrow will be a more in-depth discussion, because I'm going to be discussing on the Quranic arguments of a supporting existence of God Almighty, and about the Quran and science, how Quran al-Kareem confirms scientific facts and many other miracles of the Holy Quran as well, inshallah ta'ala. That's it from me now, and see you guys tomorrow. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.